This empty chair represents the addict who died today, not knowing recovery was possible.
Hi there, my name's Phil Leahy and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of The Empty Chair. Hope you all had a nice summer. I know we took a couple of months off also. Before I make all my introductions, I have one very special announcement I'd like to let you know about. Colleen and I have been doing this over a year. Well, I had the honor of attending my daughter's 5-year celebration Labor Day Monday. And she's mentioned before, that's her new birthday. So we celebrated her 5th year birthday, Labor Day Monday, and we just can't be more proud of her.
Thank you.
Okay, now, on with our show. As you know, we don't usually get involved in politics, but I've also realized that to try to get the awareness and the funding and the recovery, we have to go to our legislator and, we have to help them help us. So tonight, I have a special guest host. This is Jennifer Burns. Of course, you all know my daughter, Colleen. And we're really pleased to have State Senator Kathleen O'Connor Ives and my good friend, State Representative Diane DeZoglio. And we thank you both for coming here. What we really want to try and do is hopefully you can let us know what you're capable of doing and what you probably can't do for us. And I think with the help of Jen Burns, maybe she can give you a little info on what we're looking for and how we're trying to accomplish our goals of really cutting down on an epidemic that's taken hundreds of thousands of lives every year. So Colleen, I know you're an expert on the political side, so I'm going to let you start on this.
I just want to say thank you for coming to do this show with us, and it just it speaks volumes, because the show is about awareness, getting the message out there that if people are wrapped up in lives of active addiction, that there is hope. I'm living proof of that. I've been clean for 5 years. September 1st, 2008. That's my first day clean. That's my new birthday. And my dad says that, because I believe that's when my life kind of started over again. Anything prior to that was, it was like a horror movie basically, because I have the disease of addiction that I deal with today. Like you said, I'm not a politician. I don't work in the field. The only times I've ever voted in my life was when he was running for things. So I don't know.
You did vote for me, I hope.
I did vote for you. Yes. So I don't know. I guess what I want to ask you guys about is just as far as treatment goes, because that's one thing that I had a hard time with when I did manage to want to get clean. I had a hard time finding places to go. And I remember one place that I went to in Framingham. I went to a detox there. And a week later, after I left, it had closed down because of lack of funding. And I don't know, just from my own personal experience, being an active addict back then and being in recovery now, I have a lot of friends who are trying to get into recovery, trying to get into places. Because the biggest battle for me with them is just getting them to get the willingness to go to treatment. You know what I mean? Getting them to say yes, to go. And then once they say yes, to try and find some place for them to go. So I don't know, what do you guys think about, what is available, for treatment? And is there anything that even could be, done about, getting, more funding, or maybe not so much with, punishment of addicts? Not that we need to not be punished, because we have to be accountable for our actions, but being able to have, more treatment available.
And either one of you.
I think what would be helpful as an opportunity right now is to understand better from you your challenges and what you thought were the obstacles. Once you made that decision, which is huge, because there are different, I think, strategies. There's prevention, which is critical, and that deserves certain attention and support. And then there's the treatment aspect. But what did you find in your experience was the hurdle to that that you thought proper attention would have fixed?
Probably availability. you know, a lot of places that I would call, there'd be like a waiting list, sometimes months long, like to get in there. And usually when the decision is made to go into treatment, if I wouldn't have been able to go right away, then chances are the next day that I wouldn't have, you know, I would have changed my mind. You know, so it'd be being able to go like right away. So I guess it's like availability, because there'd be places, but like I said, like the waiting list would be so long, like to get in there, because of a lack of, like, you know, multiple places to be able to go to. You know, so that made it really hard. So I don't know. So I think that's why, like, you know, try and find a place, and then you can't get into a place, and then you get frustrated. And jail is not a part of my story. Like, thank God, I never had to, you know, go to jail or anything. But you know, that's where a lot of people end up finding treatment.
Yeah.
You know, it ends up being forced. You know, and then they end up, you know, being incarcerated. And that gets them off the streets, and it gets them clean.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, she just brought up a couple of shows, we had Sheriff Cousins and a couple of his deputies on, and they hired a statistician to show that the program he had on site, how much it worked, and the percentages they gave us with the recovery rate was mind-blowing. Now, you know, he was a legislator at one time too. Now, you must be aware of the program he has in the jail. I mean, is there anything you can do to help him advance that? You know, I mean, to help him find places for recovery after they get out of his thing. Basically, we're wondering what you guys can do to help us with funding, recovery, and educating people in general.
I just want to ask a question. So I'm here basically as a generalist. I'm a representative. I was born and raised in Methuen. I have been here, I've gone to Methuen High, I've graduated from Methuen High. I've seen many of my friends and my peers struggle with very similar things, and I'm a very social person. I like to go out. I have a lot of friends who have fallen prey to drug addiction, unfortunately, and it is heart-wrenching to see these things happen. It's heart-wrenching to see people go down a path that they feel like they can't get off of, and there's no way to return. And for me personally, not from the perspective of a politician, but from the perspective of a neighbor and somebody who's in the community who lives here with you, who really wants to know what we can do to help, I can sit here and tell you all day long that we have all of these programs, and I'm sure that you've heard of all of them locally because you yourselves have struggled with these issues, and you're the experts in these fields. And I think that just to go back to what Senator Ives was saying, we're looking to you to inform us and educate us about what your experiences have been and what has happened with you, so that we can go back, take it back to the State House, take it back to Beacon Hill and say, listen, this is what our constituents are saying. They're saying that they went to this program, but they experienced this. They went to that program, but they felt like we could improve in this way. They went to this detox unit, but unfortunately, this might have happened, or they think that they might require more funding. For me personally, I know that with my friends who have had to suffer with recovery and going through detox, I've found what really is frustrating to me is that I want to make sure that we're using state tax dollars appropriately, and I want to make sure that we're using state tax dollars to really help people, and that they're going to the places they should be going to and not to places that aren't really working. Because this is a huge concern. I read recently in one of the local newspapers that heroin was on the rise, and that we were seeing tons of not only kids but adults too turn to heroin. And they had mentioned the fact that opiates were being used, that it was things like oxycodone and Oxycontin and other drugs that were being used as gateway drugs. Essentially, they call these gateway drugs. That people had been injured in accidents such as, falling off of a roof and injuring their back, or they hurt themselves at work and they were put on these medications, and then that was a gateway drug. And these are friends of mine I'm talking about that had never done drugs, never done anything, but they got on these drugs. These drugs were prescribed to them for a problem that was legitimate, according to the doctors and according to them. They were in pain, but the drug itself was then a problem to them. They became addicted to the drug. That drug addiction, when they had to get cut off from that drug because they got addicted to it, they got in with the wrong crowd or whoever it was that said, I have something else, heroin. Now, to me, I'm thinking, haven't we educated people enough about how horrible heroin is and about the fact that it's something that you can get addicted to immediately, and it only takes one use, and you can be addicted to it for the rest of your life, and it's one of the number one leading causes of death amongst the different drugs that there are. This is the one that you overdose on. You're the most likely to overdose on,
Right.
according to statistics. So my question for you is, knowing that these types of things lead to heroin and people can get on these gateway drugs essentially that can get to things like heroin or to other drugs,
Right.
what do you think, what's your perspective on this? Are you seeing this in the community? Are you seeing this amongst your peers as well? And what's been your experience with being a recovering addict on actually seeing results from that? And what's the best way to obtain results as a recovering addict yourself, who's now a leader in this?
Well, what I found, like, since I've been in recovery is just like I used to judge addicts before I realized that I was one, and I thought that it was just your street person walking with a trash bag and pushing a cart. Like, the disease of addiction doesn't discriminate, like you said, like people who have never touched a drug in their life, then they get like surgery done or a car accident, whatever, and then they get put on like the opiates, and then they get hooked on the drugs, and the heroin is cheaper, and now all of a sudden like their life went from going this way to going a complete opposite direction. Like, kids are a lot younger. Like, my first drug was like alcohol and weed. Now kids are like trying heroin and cocaine, and like they're starting like a lot younger. And I think just like awareness is like the main thing. Like, that's why that's why I wanted to do this show like with him, just to let people know that there shouldn't be any like stigma attached like to being an addict. Like, it's a health thing, like body, mind, and spirit. Like, it affects physical, mental, spiritual. Like, it affects us like 3 different ways, and it doesn't matter like what walk of life that you come from. What is it, Yale to jail, something like that, and everything in between. So just like putting like an awareness like on it, just so people know that just because like whatever path they ended up taking, if their lives were okay, and then the surgery thing, and then the pills, and then the heroin, or if it was like a dysfunctional family thing, and then that's the path that they ended up like taking, the end result has to be going to treatment if that's necessary, coming into recovery, and just getting like the message out that there is hope no matter how far down that you go. Because I was pretty far down, to the point of like trying to take my own life. Like, that's what my disease took me, was to suicide attempts and psych wards, and it just like horrible, but you have to want to like get the help, so that's the message that I try to get to people, is that don't have any shame like attached to like it's what you did, it's not who you are. It's all about like what we're doing like
So
today
there's
about
a
it.
stigma, you're saying, that's
Judgments
that people
and
feel they're
shame.
going to get judged for coming forward.
Yeah.
And that there is the education out there, but if you fall prey to it, you still feel the stigma attached to it, and it's hard to come forward.
Right, and just letting you guys know like what we can do to help you, and what you can do like to help us, because like anything that you guys need me to do to go and talk to people or whatever, like I'm willing to do like whatever. Like, my life's an open book, and like I'll tell like whoever what I have to get like help for addicts, because we are dying, like we are dying like every day.
Well, Jen's worked in recovery, how many years now?
4 years.
4 years. What's the message that they can bring back that we need?
At the legislative level, the prescription monitoring bill that got passed most recently is where where doctors have to sign on, and it's able, so like people can't doctor shop. I mean, there's a lot of validity in what's happening right now, is what you had stated basically. Some people are getting into the harder drugs through a prescription coming from their doctor. I mean, each one of us in this room could take an opiate for 3 days prescribed by a doctor, and each one of us would physically need it after 3 days. Mm-hmm. It's that person that has the addictive brain where there is some proof, and like there is a chemical reaction that occurs in someone's brain where they can either be a social person who uses socially, or person who uses addictively. And that cross does occur in the brain medically. However, we have our field where they are trying to treat addiction as a medical issue. It is a disease concept. There's absolutely the disease concept. However, you can't, like, we have our system, like, the criminal commits the crime, we send them to jail, but the criminal committed the crime because they were sick and they needed to get that drug so they weren't sick anymore. So we're not treating that core piece. We're treating the criminal because he committed the crime. Absolutely, like Colleen had stated, people need to be held accountable for their actions and behaviors. But if they're not given the life skills and coping skills to change that behavior, to ultimately not reoffend, if they're put away in jail for 5, 6 years, 4 or 5 months, whatever their sentencing is, and that hasn't changed, they're going back out into the same environment with the same coping skills, with the same mindset, and they're going to reoffend. The program that Sheriff Cousins has is phenomenal and does have great, not results, what is it? The
No,
word I'm
they-
looking for?
they-
Successes, basically.
They do, yeah. The success percentage is
Is extremely high.
way higher than average.
And there is other, like there's the ATR grants that are out there that are working with Suffolk County and Hamden County jails, which helps with continuum of care is important. Colleen stated that the availability of beds, but not only the availability of beds, is someone after 4 or 5 days that is medically, the drug is not in their system. However, they did, with the comfort meds, they're still, the doctor's meds that they give them in detox is still in their system when they walk out of detox 5 days later.
Now, Jen, I have a question for you because you said you're working on. We were having a conversation before the show, and Jen was telling me about all of her amazing successes and congratulations for everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
It's phenomenal, and thank you for contributing, both of you, back to the community. You and Colleen and
Now,
Phil.
here's what I want from you guys.
Stop being so shy. Stop being shy.
I was gonna finish asking her a question. This is what happens when you have neighbors sitting together. Okay, I want to
Let me know
listen.
when I get 10 minutes. I want to make sure I get to them. Go ahead, ask your question.
Okay, yeah. So I'll be quick though. But just to end on this, I just wanted to ask you really quickly. What you just said with it still being in their system, I'm working on trying to find solutions for the drug problem in the area. I mean, when I keep reading about this, and when I look around me and I say, wow, my friend over here is actually one of those people they're talking about. This person over here, a neighbor. When I've talked to them, they've said to me that, and their family members have said to me, yes, they went to treatment. Yes, they got the treatment. Yes, it worked. They were good. They felt great. But they left. They didn't go into the extended program. They didn't go into the housing program or whatever was being provided. And it wasn't that it wasn't being provided. It was that it was provided, but they, for some reason, were either feeling like they didn't need to go to it, or there was something that got in the way of that. And I'm looking on, I want to know what we can do from your perspective to encourage taking advantage of those opportunities, staying in those programs, staying in the lengthier program, maybe going and living in the housing, maybe not going home right away, because statistics show that if you go home right away and you don't stay in the extended program, you repeat.
There's not much available, to tell you the truth. I mean, I've worked in a couple of different nonprofit agencies. I also worked for a state agency that kind of advocated at the state level. And across the board, like we did a policy forum in the Northeast area, across the board, the availability of beds outweigh, it's not even comparable to the people that want to go into
So you're
treatment.
saying it's
Unless
an
you happen to have a lot
availability
of
issue.
Unless, and not only money though, or unless you know somebody. Unless you know somebody too. You know, it's a very, I mean, the treatment field is just as flawed as any other system. You know what I mean? There's, and it's unfortunate. It's extremely unfortunate that is occurring.
And no, and you're right, short-term programs, yeah, you can get in because they're short-term.
Right.
But yeah, the long-term programs, when you do want, and what people have to understand is, how many addicts get it the first time around?
Right.
Very few.
And a lot of what's in the
Colleen 4, 5, 6 times before it finally clicked. It takes time. It's a disease that keeps going, you know, it works in your brain.
Right.
And the treatment has to be made available. And you hit the nail right on the head. Long-term treatment. You know, 5 days doesn't do it. 30 days doesn't do it.
And I've seen it personally. I've seen it with good friends, and I've seen them go into treatment, come out, everyone's excited, we're like, you know, we're so happy, you know, what can we do to help? And then it's repeat, back into detox, repeat again, back into detox, robbing family members, robbing friends, getting desperate, unable to overcome it, really being stressed out about wanting to overcome it, not being able to do it. And, you know, from just a personal perspective, like I said, I know we're here as legislators tonight, but I'm here also as somebody who's dealt with this on a personal level.
Yeah, and there
You wanna be
there
able
probably isn't
to-
too many people that haven't
Yeah.
dealt with it on a personal level.
Exactly.
At one time, everybody knows somebody. Hopefully, it's not immediate family, but you have a friend, a relative, whatever. Everybody gets affected by an addict. You may be the victim of a break-in or something in that effect like that. Everybody, one way, is the victim of an addict. The tax dollars that end up going for your jails, that according to Sheriff Cousins, 80% are housed addicts.
And on that note, I think an important piece of progress that's happening, I think in the culture, both on Beacon Hill and throughout the Commonwealth, is to make that distinction between people that need medical attention and drug treatment and recovery, and those that require incarceration. Because when you are left with only that one option of the incarceration, in a very practical way, it's extremely expensive, dollar for dollar. And that's where we need to reprioritize, because if we reinvest in having ample beds and, you know, that meets the demand for treatment, it's also prevention versus once it's too late. And then you're also not solving the underlying addiction issue. So, so I know that progress has been made legislatively on that front, where they recognize that people who are addicted to these substances need the medical treatment, and incarceration is not going to solve it, and they might actually be in that jail situation and come out worse for the experience, either being with people they shouldn't be with or learning things that they never knew, and still having the underlying problem. So I think it's important, if we are going to say where are our budget priorities, to make sure that the prevention is there and that the treatment for people that are willing before crimes are committed is there.
And I think too, with the treatment piece, I think the approach would best be served with like life skills and coping skills, because someone who is an addict that uses, doesn't want to feel, doesn't want to deal with the realities of life, may or may not have experienced trauma, may or may not have another mental illness, whether it be bipolar or depression or you know, schizophrenia, whatever, a mental diagnosis. Ultimately, prevention needs to be, the focus needs to be, you know, I would say 3rd and 4th graders. Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, there's media. I mean, there's a lot on media that can be, that needs to be.
Well,
I want to focus on the long-term care. That has been the thing that to me personally has stuck out, that I've been just focused on as far as thinking about legislation, thinking about funding, thinking about what we can do from the state level, and switching into that legislative role, because I know you want to tell us what you want from us, and we're going to be ready to hear
She's
that.
going to let me know when time's coming. Then I'm ready to anyway.
But, you know, that's what I think, you know, I have been more concerned about is, like I said, just seeing people repeat over and over again and saying, we need to get you into something a little bit more longer term to get you back on your feet again and get you into a habit of doing things. 21 days to make or break a habit. How long did you say it takes for you to get out of rehab?
Well, if
Detox?
a detox is 5 to 7 days.
5 to 7 days. I mean, it's a common sense thing. You know, people even say it all the time.
Well,
you need some time
and what
to
you're saying is
build
right.
yourself.
Definitely.
We do need, obviously, some long-term recovery places, you know. I mean, the jails are overcrowded. Why are they overcrowded? Because 80% of the people in the jail are addicts who have been there numerous times. And again, that's why Sheriff Cousins has put so much effort into it. You know, and when you guys are all said and done with this, I hope you'll kind of give him a call and ask him about his program and ask him what he's looking for, you know, for funding to expand his program, not just in Essex County, but in the other counties in Massachusetts that he's been talking with sheriffs and so forth like that. And another major thing, and Jen brought it up, I mean, you know, it seems funny we're saying 3rd and 4th grade, But it's not just the 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th and 7th grade. Public enemy number one, me, the parent. We're the worst. When she was playing around with marijuana and alcohol, I was in the majority of most parents that say, it's only marijuana, it's only alcohol, she'll grow out of it. And so the thing is, when kids are that young, and actually younger than what she was, when they're 11 and 12 years old, after a year or two, the thrill of grass and alcohol may not be enough. So you're going to move on with, and I hear...
Plus you want to fit in, and you want kids to like you, and
Yeah,
acceptance,
exactly.
and, you know.
Normalcy.
And
Yeah.
you know, and people say, well, it's their choice. When you're 13 and 14, you're not old enough to make choices. You make mistakes, but the mistakes that these kids make, they may have to live with forever.
Phil, I want to thank you for bringing up prevention, because that is completely, that should be the priority.
You gotta be kidding me. 2 minutes?
Above all else, prevention,
Well, I want
mentorship.
Everybody speak quick.
We're gonna go 3 minutes over.
Wait, I just want to ask them something real quick, like, just for like other addicts out there in recovery, like myself, who, you know, their dad, you know, they don't do a TV show with their dad. If they wanted to help, like, some way.
That's such a good point. I'm
like,
glad that
how
you're
would
saying
we,
that.
how would we do something like that? Like, write
Yeah.
to you guys or
It's
call
really
you?
important to know that for both of us, our offices are available and open to the residents, so that if people are not sure of what the resources are and they know that they need help, if we can't provide the answer, we can certainly find out who can.
Okay.
So I definitely want to let the viewers know that the Senate office number is 617-722-1609. You can also look it up on the State House website.
And I'm Representative Diana DiZoglio. My office number is 617-722-2060. My email is diana.dizoglio@mahouse.gov. And I would love to hear from you. I'm sure Senator Ives would love to hear from you, hear your perspective on the issues that we've talked about today. Make sure that we know what your concerns are on prevention, on after, you know, taking care of people afterwards, and moving forward and actually making
it's
some
totally
progress.
normal. It's not a bother. There's no stupid question. People call us on questions about, you know, health care coverage, veterans benefits, questions about school, you know, the public university system. There's no reason why someone couldn't call us and say, we have someone who's seeking a place to stay because they want to recover, and we could find through the Department of Health the resources available.
So pick up the phone and ask for help.
Listen, guys, thank
Thank
you for
you.
coming. You know, I appreciate you coming. I know it was only half an hour. I do hope you will bring your message back to Boston. I do hope you'll get in touch with Sheriff Cousins. And you can get in touch with us anytime if you would like to know what we know, and maybe we can put you in the right direction.
And we'll come back.
Okay, and we'll
Excellent.
do
Thank
that
you.
too.
Okay.
Guys, thank you for my special guest host. We'll see you next month. This is The Empty Chair. Have a great month. Bye-bye.
Thank you.